Hello, 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 everyone. This is Mary D. Watch. Hi, everybody. We are back on a beautiful Monday morning, or Monday afternoon, I should say, Monday afternoon. And we're back here with the Mary D. Show. Those that know, they watch the Mary D. Show. So we'd like to thank you for coming out on this Monday and spending some time with us. It really makes a difference when you're here. It touches my heart for sure. And if the guests also. And remember too, you can write comments. If you're on Facebook, I think we can see the comments. And if you're on YouTube, we can see the comments. So you can write while we're having the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest for you today. Her name is Vonya Quarles. Vonya, read some little things about her just to kind of tell you who she is. She is a native Californian and co-founder of Starting Over Inc. Starting Over Inc. has operated for over 10 years and has helped over 1,000 men, women, and children address immediate housing needs while working to address long-term solutions that include systems change. Vonya blends experience, education, logic, and love into an organic concoction that has helped to organize and lift the voices of people who have been historically marginalized. Vonya holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Management and a Juris Doctorate. She practices law and criminal justice policy work. She is a founding member of Riverside, All of Us or None chapter. It works to end discrimination faced by incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people. She has systems impacted herself and works to address the complexities and the collateral consequences of criminal convictions as they relate to family, reunification, housing, employment, and other intersections. Vonya was the 2011 Women Organizing for Justice Fellow, in 2012 and 13, Women's Policy Institute Fellow. She's also the class of Eleanor Jean Greer Leadership Academy Fellow. In 2015, a W.K. Kellogg Foundation Racial Equality and Healing Fellow, and a current Rosenberg Leading Edge Fellow working on family reunification. Vonya has fused these developmental opportunities with her own lived experiences to become a powerful and competent systems change agent that works within ever-widening circles. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to our special guest today, Vonya. And here she comes. Hi, Vonya.
Hi, Mary. Hi, everyone. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to the show.
Oh, thank you for being on today. We're honored to have you. Well, I'd like to first ask you, Vonya, I was just reading over your bio, and it's really impressive of the things that you're involved in. First of all, tell us about you. Where are you from? Are you a native Californian, or where are you from?
Yeah, actually, I'm a native California, born and raised in Southern California, and lived in LA County for most of my life. Came out to Riverside area in 2008.
All right. And you are, as I'm reading this, you're involved in two, I believe, nonprofits, not one, but two. Starting Over is one, Starting Over Inc., and All of Us or None. Those are two distinct nonprofits. Is that correct?
So Starting Over Inc. is its own standalone nonprofit, and we house the Riverside All of Us or None project, which is usually umbrellaed under a nonprofit. So Riverside is just one of probably 30 different chapters across the country. And we started that chapter in 2011.
Okay, so there are you said there's 30 of these, of the All of Us or None. I didn't know that. I thought you guys were the only one. See, that's.
No, there's at least 30.
Now, what are the goals of All of Us or None?
Basically, All of Us or None is an apparatus that's used to help end the discrimination faced by formerly incarcerated people.
Okay, so if you were formerly incarcerated, even though you paid your debt to society, you basically are still being punished after that.
That's what the collateral consequences are about. And so had I not had my own experiences, I probably never would have paid it much attention. Most people go about their lives and really don't understand that there are over 14,000 collateral consequences associated with criminal convictions, and about 70 to 75% of them are for lifetimes. So a person can make a mistake and then they're punished and they serve their time. And we call it a collateral consequence because over and above what the judge sentenced this person to, they have to pay. Not only do they pay, but their family pays. Their earning potential, where they can live, whether they can get custody of family members who might need to be placed with someone during crisis. All those things are impacted by criminal conviction histories.
Oh my goodness. I wasn't aware. I knew the one thing I think I'd heard was that people being able to vote. And then I understand what I heard about that too is if you were, as long as you're not being, not on parole or not on probation, even if you've received, you've been convicted, but you're not being monitored, then you can vote.
And so that's the way it was, sort of. And then last November, a ballot initiative, and it was Proposition 17, changed the voting laws in California so that a person can actually vote when they're on parole now. Probation never, yeah, isn't that interesting?
It is. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so now people can vote on parole. When I was incarcerated, they told me, the folks who were in charge said, you'll never be able to vote. You've thrown your life away. We'll hold your bed for you. But actually, as long as you weren't on parole, you could actually vote. The problem is a lot of people who were on parole bought into the fallacy or bought into the notion that they could not vote. And so we registered voters so often where they would say, I can't vote. I'm a convicted felon. And we would say, are you on parole? They'd say no. And we'd let them know, yes, you can vote. Yeah. And so we've done a lot of voter education and voter registration with our own community because a lot of them think they can't.
Right. I've actually experienced that. A few years ago, I was doing voter registration. And the story, I'll tell you this quick story, but the gentleman, I went to one home in the justified, it was a man's nephew. So the nephew said, I'm not interested. And he was like about maybe in his early 20s, 21, 22. But the uncle who was unloading the truck, I just went to him and just said, sir, I'm doing voter registration. Are you registered to vote? And it was like a blank look on his face. And right then and there, I leaned toward him and I said, do you have a felony? He said, yes. He nodded. He didn't say the words. He just nodded to me. And I said, and then I started talking, are you on probation? Are you on parole? And he said, no. He said, he was speaking Spanish. And he said, that was years ago. And I looked at him. I said, you can vote. The man, it was like I just opened up a whole world to him. He's like, no. He said, I can vote. I can vote. He was just so, nobody had ever told him. He told me then, he goes, I read everything. I know all the propositions. He was just, I cannot tell you what that felt like.
Wow.
Ability to vote. He said he knew all about all the politics. And I think he cared more because he couldn't vote. So he was so much aware of everything. So it just showed me the power of being able to vote and giving somebody that right back. So you're helping thousands of people. That's my quick story. So
and so are you. Yeah. And that's the kind of reward we get when we talk to people. And so there's been a lot of work in California the past 10 years or so addressing some of the collateral consequences. So we saw the ban the box bill pass. We saw certain low-level felonies reduced to misdemeanors. We saw more rehabilitation happening through Prop 57. So we're seeing changes, and the voters in Riverside County and San Bernardino County have signaled that they want more change, but the current leadership or the current elected representatives still tend to be more law and order minded or law and order focused. Right. And even though the voters are saying no to this. I mean, we live in a county where the district attorney felt it prudent to go and campaign for Prop 20, but the voters opposed Prop 20, which would have changed Prop 47 misdemeanors back to felonies. And so the voters keep saying, no, we don't want this. And we're waiting for our elected officials to either catch up or we'll catch new elected officials. I think is probably what's going to happen. But the norm has become, let's look at evidence-based approaches. Let's look at alternatives to incarceration. Let's look at strength-based models and getting past the barriers to employment and housing. If we can address the mental health, employment, and housing, we will see a dramatic decrease in the recidivism rate. And we'll see certain communities become much stronger as a result.
Right, right. I think I talked with you about that housing alone, especially in California, I would think is probably the biggest obstacle to overcome.
For everyone. So, yeah, and it is across the board. And for this particular segment of the population that we have legally marginalized, that we have legally discriminated against and said, we'll provide housing subsidies to everyone except you. It's just, the time is now to recognize why it's so critical to address this particular segment of the population. You have lots of different lenses that you can look through. One is a racial equity lens. If we know the system is having a disparate impact on any particular group, it's our duty to correct that system. And then you couple the fact that now you're going to tie housing to that same system that we know is racially flawed. Now we're responsible for addressing it. And so I think a lot of people are saying, if we're really going to address homelessness, we have to make it low barrier. We have to eliminate some of the barriers that people are facing.
Right. It's like that, like I said, to my knowledge, I don't know if the recidivism is going down or is it stagnant, or is it, and I would, like I said, just housing alone for someone who's even an everyday person going to work just to cover the cost of housing is almost impossible in California. Especially if you're at a job, a minimum wage, because they've done studies, they know it's literally impossible. You have to have shared housing, you have to have other ways to figure out your housing. So how does a person who is being released coming into the society, at the most, they're probably looking at minimum wage, I'm thinking, and then to get any training, to my understanding, you don't get any financial aid. So you get no government assistance to help you, get a training or a skill or that kind of thing. I would think, I can't even imagine, I'll be honest, I can't even imagine what type of hardship that is.
And the reality is no person that's incarcerated is totally isolated. And so, I understand the punitive nature of our criminal justice system, but we're not just punishing the individual, we're punishing that individual's family, and it's multi-generational. So if you create barriers to education, economic mobility, housing, and those kinds of things for a parent, it's likely that their children are going to be impacted, and their children. I'm a third generation convicted felon. And so that's what I believed my life was supposed to be. We could live in certain places, many places we couldn't. Only certain employment opportunities were available to my mother, and some weren't. And so the trajectory for me was quite different than it could have been. And so when we look at the built environments that we have in place now we know better, right? And so we understand the systemic nature of what we see around us, and it's up to us to address it. And so Starting Over is a direct service provider. We provide housing services, but we also are engaged in public policy, civic engagement, and community organizing, because we understand that the problems we see are not just behavioral, they're also systemic, and we got the power to change that.
All right. Well, I can tell you, oh, I am the mother of an incarcerated son. So I'm living it. I'm living the family side of it, of how we're trying to make the best of the situation. Even now, he's through this, he's become an author. Through this, in fact, his book will be coming out in a couple of months. We're trying to, we're trying to do just try to do what we can. But I really realized what we've done. And then he even talked about this. He said, "Mom, do you think you would have started writing if I wasn't here?" And I said, "You know what, son? I don't think so. But it's made me to giving me a survival technique, and that's my writings. But it's because I needed somewhere to put the frustrations and the anxiety and the stress, all those things that you're feeling. I needed somewhere to put them, and the outlet has been the writing, and so that's been my outlet. But it's not easy. Every time the phone rings and I see it's from him, I take a breath and I'm praying it's something good. But he even told me one day, he said, "Mom, has it ever happened that you thought there was something bad?" I said, "It hasn't." But I never get past that. So I just take it one day at a time, just one day at a time. So, yeah. So I'm like I said, when you said about the whole family, yes, it does impact our entire family.
Yeah, it does. And so who are we punishing, and for how long, and what is the outcome of that punishment? And so we've seen the prison system grow in this state and across the whole country as a result of what we call the drug war. And those prisons still exist, and we've added private prisons to the collection of prisons. And so if we don't correct ourselves or correct this system, we're going to have generation after generation being fed to a system that doesn't have good outcomes for anyone, whether you're working in the prison, whether you're sentenced to time in the prison, whether you're sentenced to time on the outside as a mother or daughter or father or son. Who wins? And we don't make the victims whole. I heard the district attorney talk about, I believe he was referring to Gascon and not considering the victims. I think we have to redefine who victims are, whether they're a victim of a person or whether they're a victim of a system. They're still victims. And we have to make sure that we don't fall down a slippery slope of thinking that the only victims there are victims of people and victims of violence, because violence shows up in many ways to community members. And we have to make sure that what we're doing is leading us towards where we want to be. And that's why I think focusing on improving the lives of people who've been impacted by the criminal justice system, many of whom started off as a victim first, who received violence before they dished it out. Those are the things that we haven't, been really keen on considering. But if we look at the whole person and the whole family, then we can find out what the underlying causes and conditions are and try to help, address it. And in our effort to do that, Mary, we're looking at foster care, for example. There's 65,000 children languishing in foster care in California, and most of them are Black and brown. And we can go into a whole discussion of why so many Black and brown babies languish in foster care longer than other children do, but that's a whole different topic.
Right.
But what we see as a barrier is you can have good family members who want to come and bring this child home, people this child has a relationship with. But if they did something 20, 30 years ago, say they're a grandparent now, but 20 or 30 years ago, they had a conviction, it could take a year or more for them to bring that child home, if they bring them home. And so we think that if the conviction isn't related to a person's ability to love and care for a child, why should it be a barrier? So Senator Skinner is carrying a bill for us this year to try and help address some of that and bring some of our babies safely and lovingly home.
Right. Well, I think that's overdue. Overdue. Like you were talking about family reunification and not only for the foster care system, but when people reunify after someone comes out of the institution, how that, if I understand, they don't come directly home. They go to like a halfway, for like 6 months or something like that. So they never come direct, because it's a shock. It's a shock to everyone, because it's trying to get used to that person's, even their very presence being there. It takes time. It takes time. In the foster, you mentioned the foster care system. Is there a program that helps those students, them educationally once they age out of the system?
Yes, yeah, actually there is. And so if a person has a child that's getting ready to age out, if the case is left open, they'll provide educational and housing services. And then now they have what's called termed transition age youth, or TAYS. And they receive services, which is relatively, I want to say like 5 to 10 years. They've recognized the need to provide services to children after they turn 18, because at first it was like 18, get out.
Yeah.
And we don't do that to our children.
Yeah, that's a shock, because they, especially going through foster care, they have that. What I was told in that situation, many of them become homeless, or they become involved in drugs, or they get involved in the criminal justice system. There's not too many avenues if there's no one, showing you the way out, so that you're not going in that direction, or that kind of thing. Well, I know too, you're from All of Us or None. So All of Us or None and Starting Over. Starting Over helps with the housing. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
But All of Us or None is the criminal justice and its policy initiatives.
Yes, and that is system impacted, is led by people who are system impacted. We don't dictate or determine what they do. They kind of decide what policies they want to work on, what their priorities are, and that is their apparatus to do that. And we just provide support to them in that effort. Bobby Butts does the family reunification, equity, and empowerment work. We call it FREE. And they meet every Friday virtually now to help parents who are going through the child welfare system to navigate that space. And it is so similar to the criminal justice system. Most people who get into those systems have never been there before. They don't know how to navigate, and they become a victim of it before they know what happened. And so what Bobby does is kind of help support them through that process. When COVID is over, they'll be showing up at courts, showing the parents how to document and keep records of everything that they're doing. The kind of support that, you would expect that the parents would have going into the system, but it really kind of just rolls them over. And so, so Bobby works with them on that, and she does policy work related to that, to family reunification. And then Avalon Edwards, she works on the jail visitation, and they're trying to get the county jails in our region to open up to families for visitation. Some children haven't seen their parents in almost a year.
Yeah.
And so it's really difficult. And a year is a long time for a child. And many times jail is the place where the reunification could begin, because mom or dad is there, and children can come there and kind of heal or start to build a relationship. The stats say that when this happens, that recidivism drops. If people are allowed to reunify with their family and do what they need to do, they have a better chance of being successful in their release. And so Avalon Edwards with Starting Over is her, and Michael Gerardo and Toya Vick are leading that work. And then Toya and Michael are also doing participatory defense work. So there's like a whole team of folks, and now we have case managers and peer supports to work with the housing folks. And it seems to be the holistic approach that we wanted, and we're just now able to provide all the services that we'd like.
Now, are you government funded?
So we get private, and we have two grants, one from adult reentry, and the other one from community reinvestment. And so those are the government grants that we've gotten. But most of our funds come from contracts or private grants.
I'm just glad to know you even exist. I didn't even know that all of this. I mean, I'm sure there's someone else here that's saying the same thing, that they didn't know that you were there, but that it's a blessing that you, because there's no money that can take care of this. This is a calling. It's a ministry, really, to even be involved in this. But what we didn't talk about was what led you into becoming an attorney. How did you?
Oh.
How did you? We didn't get there, but don't worry, we're getting there.
Okay, all right.
You go from, like you said, you were feeling it was generational. It was going through that. How did you get past that? Because that's a big hurdle to overcome.
Yeah, and I would say God, and people say, what do you mean God? But that's exactly what happened, because I had a mindset in my mind, Mary, I believed that I was going to live and die in that life. I didn't know that there was another life for me. I hadn't seen it, hadn't glimpsed it, didn't know anything about living life, and so I have to say that's what it was. And so I went through a recovery process and got connected to God and was able to listen and follow simple, clear-cut instructions about what I needed to do and what I didn't need to do. And then I was able to start something and finish it, because the lifestyle that I had was I could start a whole bunch of stuff, but I didn't have the stamina, or I didn't have the focus to complete anything. Mm-hmm. And I think God was preparing me for the work that I'm doing now. I truly believe that all that I went through and what I thought was the worst can actually become a light to someone else who's in the same or similar situation. And when I was a kid, I'm gonna tell you this, Mary, I just wanted the baller in my own Section 8. That was where my mind was. I know it's horrible, but that's what I thought living was. And I am so grateful that God had other plans for me, and that I opened myself up to the Creator and that energy, and it changed my life. I didn't graduate from middle school, so to go from that to a law degree, somebody was helping me.
I tell you, as I mentioned to you before, I started law school but haven't finished, and just in the last few days, about 3 people said, you should go back and get your doctorate. You need to do this. I said, you know what? If I go back, it has to be for law. I don't like leaving things undone. And even that right now is just not on my list, but I do know how important it is to finish. Just finish. It's not a matter, I think it's just the completion. And then I think, oh, maybe you're getting too old for that. But I know that's not true.
Nope.
I can use it though, but it's not true.
Yep.
So I have to see. But when I talk to people like you, I get encouraged. I do. I get encouraged of, she did it. She did it. You can do it. You just stay focused and stay organized and stay disciplined and you can do it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
If someone, well, I'm sure a lot of people that they're not there, may have done something and they didn't get it's not a felony or whatever, or maybe it is, because now a lot of things are being expunged or reduced. How would they come to your organization to get something to work, or you be able to tell them which ones are reduced, which ones we can take off all of that?
Definitely. And we're providing support now to cover the cost of the background. So the live scans usually cost $25 a person to get their fingerprints rolled. We're working with Empire Law in Riverside, and they're actually rolling them for us, and we're taking care of the cost of that, and then showing them how to get a waiver from the Department of Justice, and we can do their background relief work. So that's another thing that we work on. And so I want to give the website before we get off. And then I wanted to share about the Prison to Employment and the Path to Staffing, Employment, and Entrepreneur Development, which Michael Wahomey leads that effort, and he is an amazing employment specialist in terms of preparing people for the workforce and showing them how to stay. You know, how do you retain your employment once you get it? And so we think that these kinds of solutions serve the community much
Yes.
better than just locking folks up.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. And I would please, whatever flyers or anything I can do to help get the word out about, please let me know. I would be glad to for you. And we do have an email system, and we try to let the community know what's going on. Because if we don't share information, how will it get out? It really, because everybody doesn't use Facebook. I've heard people say, let's put it on Facebook. I said, that doesn't guarantee that doesn't we're going to see it because it's on Facebook. But if you can get it out and ask, what I always try to do is ask people to please forward and share this information, that because I realize my network is not your network. You have another group of people that you communicate with that I may never talk to. But if you can share it with them and then ask them to do the same, do you know how big that net can get just by sharing information about what's going on? So I definitely would like to do that for you and your group without a doubt. And I do plan on joining also.
And you've shared a lot of good information with us, and we want to start getting yours out there too, because you're right. It's really about, you know, ever widening circles. And if we can stay circled up, then we don't have to worry about stuff. It's when we break our circles that we become weak and vulnerable. And so I really think the work is about remembering that we're all part of the circle, and we're all part of this life. And let's handle it. Let's do it.
In other words, we're all in this together. That's what.
Yeah.
What is that saying? I think it was Martin Luther King said, we may have come on different boats, but we're in the same boat now. That's I think it was, I can't remember if that was him.
Yep.
We're all in this together, and how can we help one another? That's the key. But I want to tell you too, I'm not ending the conversation, but just tell you, I applaud you for your work. I applaud you because so many people may not, have gone on. You've taken your lemons and turned them into lemonade. And then you even went even further and said, okay, how can I reach back and help other people? That is huge, because you already know you're affecting not just the lives of that person that was incarcerated, you're affecting the family, you're literally affecting generations to help educate the next generation and get the housing for the family and help them. It's just, like I said, it's a ministry. It is a ministry that you're doing, and it's got to be fulfilling for you too, to see the lives change.
It is. And you know what? When I came into this work, I came in totally naive as to systemic work. And there were leaders in this field, like Susan Burton. There were just so many strong women. She's one that comes to mind because she really mentored me and trained me up on how to do it and how to keep that singleness of focus, because there are so many issues at play. You know, we're not single issued people, but there was really no one speaking for system impacted people. And especially in our community, because we're the only people that are defined or described by our deficits instead of our assets. And so when we come into certain spaces and we're talking about criminal justice or folks who've been locked up, some people feel embarrassed by it. And I'm not talking about white people embarrassed by it. I'm talking about Black folks, because they don't want to be painted with that broad brush. And I understand that. I get that. But what do? Just allow all the folks that we know who are incarcerated to be sacrificed because we want to feel good about who we are?
No.
We can't do that. We have to.
Well, I'll tell you, I was one of those people. I was so devastated because I was a teacher and all these things that I thought, oh no, that won't be one of my children. And that it very well is. So for tell you the truth, for about 10 years, I didn't associate with, it was like I locked myself in my home. I didn't associate, I didn't do anything. I've only in the last few years come out of, almost like out of a hole, when about 5 or 6 years ago, I was praying and the Lord said, live your life as if your son is not there. It changed my life. And he said, in other words, what would you be doing differently? And That's when I started writing. That all those things came out when I gave myself permission. But I was in such a state of depression and such a state of guilt. And it took a while. It didn't happen overnight. It took a while to get out of that. But I will tell you now, my son even he said, Mom, I'm so glad because we were worried about you. We were worried about you, whether you're going to, not me surviving, we were worried about if you're going to survive it.
Wow.
Do you have statistics on families? I actually personally know of 3 ladies, their child was incarcerated. 2 passed away while they were incarcerated. And the other one, he came out and within 10 days, she passed away. I don't have statistics on anything, how the family, and not that they couldn't have passed away anyway. I don't want to sound like that, but they had already told me they were stressed about everything. So that stress, them physically is what had happened. Do you guys have statistics on that?
No, Mary, but I would love to see that. We know that stress has an impact on a person's longevity. So we know it shortens the lifespan. But as far as how many family members of folks incarcerated, no, that's a great avenue to explore. It might be difficult to link it to the actual incarceration, but we can look and see if it's higher than the average, right? The other thing is, I'm glad you brought that up about how it takes a toll. And remember when people used to get in trouble way back in the day, their parents would say, oh, they on vacation, or they went off to college, right? In our community, we knew what that meant, right? They were gone. And so, and it is important that we expect Black excellence. And we do. We achieve Black excellence all the time.
Right.
But we're the only people that are defined by deficits. You don't hear about our Black excellence, but we will lord over how many of us are incarcerated, how many of us are employed, and those kinds of things. And that's why a lot of our people really don't want to tackle the criminal justice system because of that respectability issue. And it's not a behavioral issue. The problem we have with the criminal justice or criminal injustice system isn't behavioral, it's systemic. If 13% of Black people are using drugs and 13% of every other population is using drugs, why are 40 to 45% of our folks being incarcerated?
That's right.
Why are our people sentenced to all day when other people are granted probation and misdemeanors for the same actions?
That's right.
And so, yes, we want Black excellence and we respect ourselves, but we're not going to turn our back on a system that is killing us and robbing our communities and families on a daily basis. So that's kind of the work and what we're going to keep doing. And so I want to tell all the folks that are concerned, we're not saying that all Black people are in prison, but we're saying too many of us are disproportionately locked up.
Right. Compared to the numbers of the population percentage and compared to incarceration, there's no comparison. There is no comparison. I know it's just anyway. All I would say is there's no doubt. There's a need. Your need is it's overflow. I mean, it's got to be. I'm sure the phone rings off the hook every single day. I know it does, because like you said, most people we won't talk about it because I guess for me even speak, I think this may be the first time I've said it publicly, because it's like a shame to your family. It's like, oh, well, what did you, or the other thing, what I got as a mother was, what did you do wrong? What did you do wrong? What didn't you do? All of that was in there. And I was like, oh my God, I was, here it is, I'm helping other people's kids and can't even help my own child type thing. And at the same time, it has been hard. But he's helped me accept it. My own son has said, Mom, it's okay. It's not you. It's not, and I said, I wish I could say that. I said, but you're not a mother. So you don't really know how this, what I feel as having given you birth type thing. But it's been, I have friends, between family and friends, that has helped without a doubt. My husband, to help keep me going. And then what happens, I start giving birth to books. Then I say giving birth, but it is authoring, but I call it giving birth. And then my children this is 2 sons have written. Now the third son is writing his book. My granddaughter's writing her book. So we taken, as you did, the same thing, took those lemons and we're making lemonade.
That's right. That's right. And I got the one book from you, but I saw you got a lot of books, Mary.
You know what I have? I have journals because I've learned the power of journals. So I started sharing that with people. And you must be talking about it's called the Big Black Journal. And I think I'm gonna do one for incarcerated. I didn't do one for incarcerated, but I'm gonna do one.
Oh yeah, I want to get some of those if you do so.
And those, oh, okay. That's really, I'll tell you, the one that's the big one now is Saying No Nicely.
Oh, that's the one I bought.
Okay. That one, believe it or not, Justin, and that's the son that's incarcerated, he's the one that helped me write. He's the editor he's such a really good English. Well, all the sons, really, truly, all of them are really good in English. I would have to honestly say this. I'm so impressed with their English. The oldest one corrects my English. And I'm like, well, how did this happen? But he said, Mom, I study English. He said it is an art. And I thought, you're right. I'm a history teacher. So I can hold my own, but he's really, really good in English. So,
is he a teacher too? Is he a teacher?
You would think. In fact, I've been trying to get them to become teachers, but they said no. I don't know why. Maybe because all those years they went to school with me and they got tired. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm just glad they have skills. I'm just glad to see them become authors and write. I'm actually writing. I just started this. It's a story about my son and I, and I'm writing. But he's writing. I'm writing. People get to see us through the years, our letters and things like that, and us writing back and forth, and how this experience has affected us.
Oh wow!
He's 37. Yeah. He's 37 now. Yeah, he's 37. So we just take, like I said, we take it one day at a time. But when I speak to people like yourself, you keep me encouraged. You keep me going, and just don't give up. Just hang on in there.
Yes. So did he already get his degrees and stuff before?
No.
Because
not before. No.
Okay.
Before he was incarcerated. No. Yeah. He had his high school. He had his high school diploma, but he's almost done with his college degree. But he's also written 3 books. He's written 3 books and 150 songs.
Wow, that's amazing. I know they're having some more educational programs available too at the different institutions. CRC has an Inside Out program, and they're actually accepting students into Pitzer when they come home. So that's the program. Yeah, it's available through CRC, and then I think some of the prisons upstate, further up north, are offering programs now too for education. But yeah.
Well, he does the where they, what is it, distance learning. They send everything back to the professor. They do that.
Yeah.
But people said it's hard to get the classes though. So many people want the education that it's hard to get into the classes. So I think that's probably going to change. And then you have with COVID, we're all in distance learning. Really, is what it comes down to. So
yeah.
We're hanging on in here.
Yeah. So can I plug the rally at the Southwest Detention Center on Saturday at 10 o'clock?
You can. Do you have a flyer?
I do have a flyer. So okay. You want me to send it to you, or
I do. Please send it over to me. Yes,
I sure will. It's going to be this Saturday at 10 o'clock at the Southwest Detention Center in, I think it's Rancho Cucamonga or Montana. It's where the San Bernardino jail. I think it's Rancho Cucamonga.
I think that's Rancho also. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Southwest Detention Center at 10, and what they're doing is asking that children and families be allowed to visit again.
Okay. All right, please send that over. I know it's so many things going on in the, to my knowledge. I don't know everything, or I don't think anybody does, but in the criminal justice system now that I don't think I've seen this much movement in a long time. So that's very, it's a positive situation. So I'm glad to see that. I know too, there may be something that, even though I'm asking the questions, it may be something other than, like you said, the rally on Saturday, that you would like for people to know about you, or about your causes and your commitments?
I think that in terms of the work that I do, it's in line with work that other people are doing across the state and across this nation. And so what we're looking at in 2021 is how do we increase partnerships, like you were saying, in networks? How do we help people to understand that as long as um, our local and state budgets are going to law enforcement and to locking people up, we're going to have fewer dollars for health and human services, housing, and those things like that. And so what we're saying is refund the community, give us portions of that budget back to do the work we do, and to focus on prevention instead of incarceration, to invest in our youth so that they don't become the next generation of folks to occupy a prison system that's not built for human life. And so I think it's not saying in the sheriff or in the district attorney, but we're saying as a county, how do we holistically spend a budget that helps all of us instead of punishing a few of us at the expense of all of us? And that's kind of what we're asking our county elected officials to do. And the County Board of Supervisors on March the 9th, Supervisor Perez had the courage to bring forth a resolution that says, let's put an end to involuntary servitude. And you would think that would have been just a slam dunk for him. However, there has been more opposition to that than any other budget item they've had. And so we are asking people to email cob@rivco.org and tell them that you support ending involuntary servitude.
Okay, let me get that from your email, cob.
At Rivco.
At RICO.
.org. And they're going to have the meeting on March the 9th. And at our last count, there were about 200 people who had actually phoned or emailed them to say they want to keep involuntary servitude in the Constitution. And they don't want the resolution to pass. So we're urging people that care and don't want involuntary servitude to exist in our county or our state to please let the Board of Supervisors know that you support ending involuntary servitude.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you saw it that's scrolling on the bottom, that is the email that you can send that to. And please send all this to me, because I will, like I said, I'll email it out. This is what I find is that you never know where, as they say, you don't know where your help is going to come from. There's no way to know. And when the email goes out, it goes out to thousands of people. And I would tell you the response for almost any, depending on what it is, people know if they want to get involved or not, or they want to support. From my knowledge, it has been that very few Black families have not been affected by these institutions, meaning that it may not be you directly, but it could be a cousin, an uncle, an aunt, or someone that you know that has either been incarcerated or is on parole or on probation or some type of court order that they are under. That very few Black families, if that's the case, that they don't know someone. So how we help, it really is helping each other to make society better. And sometimes everybody's not in a position to do it. But what can we do? What can you do? If it's writing a letter, that helps. Because I believe there's a vibration in this universe, that the good vibrates and the bad vibrates. But which one is going to out vibrate? So, but we don't work together as like they said that if you have one finger, you can only do, it's like one thing, but when you put them all together and you make a fist, this is mightier than this one. So it's really us working together. That's the key to almost anything in life. You have to work together. get anything done. So, as I said, I'm saying this again to you. I applaud you. I'm a, you see?
Thank you, Mary, and thank you for sharing such intimate truth with myself and all the people that are listening. That's difficult. I remember when I first came out, it took me 10 years after paroling from prison
See?
before I would even tell people where I had been. So I get it.
10 years.
It was 10 years. I thought I could run away from it. And, I tried. I went to work in the oil refinery because they weren't, really checking backgrounds back then. And I thought I could get away from it. And God said, no,
Well,
you got something to do.
It's our truth. And I think it's taken me a while. But, I'm going to tell you, I was watching one of the coaches. I'll be honest, this is what happened. I was watching him and he said, if you can go on the internet and tell your truth, you have nothing to hide. Now you have nothing else. That probably was my biggest thing about hiding. I don't want people to think less of me type thing. And then I said, okay, so they think less of you. You better get on with your life. You get on living. What is they said that in Shank Shaw Redemption? He said, you either get on living or get on dying. You got to decide which one is it going to be. And I think what happened today, I decided to get on living. And this is my truth. I've lived this. I have lived this. We go from this. My child is paying his debt to society. There's no doubt about that. And I just take it one day at a time and try to keep our family together and unite it. Is it easy? No. Would I wish this on someone? I would not wish this on an enemy if I had one. But this is my road. This is what my life, what I have to walk. And I walk it with God and my family. And that's what we do. But I couldn't believe it was 10 years for you too.
Oh yeah, it was 10 years easy. Now, if you knew me, then we could talk about it. But at work, and I you know what? I looked over my shoulder at work because I was thinking they're going to find out who I am and they're going to get me out of here. Because I was scared to death. I couldn't even tell the employer the truth. They said, "Have you ever been convicted?" I'm like, "No, sir." And they weren't checking, so they weren't doing live scans, and they didn't bother, and so but I lived with that lie, and it was heavy. It was heavy. And when I came out, I just felt relief.
It's a weight lifted because there's nothing for, like you said, nobody's gonna put their hand on your shoulder and say, we found you, because that meant every time you went to work, it was their anxiety of that. They're gonna find out. It's just a matter of time. And so what happens is it eats at you. And I said, well, Lord, I have to keep living. That's why I think when it was about 6 years ago, and said, live as though he was home. What would you do differently? And that's when I started going live on Facebook. I started writing. I started doing all things that I had people of. And that fear went away, and now I just keep going. I keep going. The books have been it's like flying out. I'm actually looking for artists. I have so many books. I just have to get people to do the artwork now. And it's changed my life. It has truly changed my life. So I would tell you, as I can see, it has changed yours. So you become a different person too, because you're living in your truth. You're not living that lie. And not that it was a lie, it just wasn't the whole truth. I think that's what better way, because you weren't lying.
It was a lie. It was a lie.
It was a lie.
Yeah, it was a lie.
I'm trying to be nice. Huh?
Yeah, it was a lie.
But
we don't have to live like that. I'm just grateful we don't have to live like that. And coming from a place of humility about where I've been helps me to not be judgmental about other people doing this walk or, on this path. And so I'm glad that I can be an instrument or get in line with the other frontline folks that are doing this work and work with them to bring about the change that we deserve.
Well, so, I tell you, I can't thank you enough.
Well, you're inspiring me, Mary. You're inspiring me. It's like, wow.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the writing, like I said, just listen to you. I haven't I haven't taken the dive and said I'm going to get back into law school, but I'm thinking about it. That's the first.
Okay.
I haven't. I did finish, like you said, contract, torts, and crim. I did do that. Those three, even that, to be honest with you, it was so, I have learned so much just from 3 law classes that for the rest of my life I'll be able to use. So even though I may not I haven't finished, I do have to go back and I do, it's just a lot, it's a lot of work. That's why I'm like, okay, do you really want to do it? I do want to do it, but I got to commit to it. That's what it is. I have to commit to it. So that's why I applaud you, because somewhere in you committed to that and to getting it.
Yeah. Well, that was 4 years because I went at night. So I was working during the day and I was going to school at night. And it seemed like for 4 years, all I did was work, go to school and read and brief cases. Work, go to school, read and brief cases. And it was it is a commitment. But now they have a program where you can actually apprentice your way into your law license.
Okay. I don't think that was there when I was in there.
Yeah, I would have took that if they would have had it, but I don't think they had it then.
You would have been in line for that one, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk when the show's over. Maybe we'll see. I'm not gonna say yes and I'm not gonna say no. Because they just actually said you should go and get a doctorate. That's what made me think about it again. And this a few days ago, and I told her, I said, I can't do that. And she's like, why? I said, because I didn't finish my law. And she goes, well, when are you going to go back and finish? I don't know. And she goes, Mary, you're not getting any younger. I said, I know. That's why I'm hesitant. Because I'm like, do I really want it? I know, to me, you have to really want it bad. When it comes to law, you have to really want it. You can't play around with it because you're dealing with people's lives when it comes to dealing with the law, and their livelihood and all of those things. So I don't take it lightly. I do not take it lightly at all. But I'd like to definitely give the audience, if you haven't had a chance to get, is this the one? I'll make sure starting over. Oh, you hear me echo?
No.
Oh, I hear voices. I hear some voices. I don't know.
Oh, let me mute. That's me.
Oh. Okay. But I wanted to tell the audience here that please get in touch with this wonderful, wonderful lady. She has dedicated her life to helping people. Really, you could say the less fortunate, because I think what happens when it comes to incarceration, we really throw people away. We don't want to say it like that, but it's really, if someone is not there to help someone when they're going through these things or coming out, that's what the recidivism, why it's high, because unfortunately prison becomes home. That's just the facts. It becomes home unless there are people out here like Attorney Quarles and has these different resources that can help people get back on their feet and be able to support themselves and support their families. That's really, really huge. So I'm gonna you can unmute now, because I do want to tell you bye before we get going.
Okay.
Thank you again. I can't thank you enough for spending this time with us. And will you come back again?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you, Mary. This was nice.
Thank you so much.
This was nice.
And I would like this. Don't forget, email me the flyer. I promise you, I will send it out. It'll be on today's email.
Okay. Thank you. I'll send it to you.
All right. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, and we are all nearing the end of the Mary D show. The tagline is, those who know watch the Mary D show. I'd like to thank you for those of you that subscribed to the show. You liked it and subscribed to it. I can't thank you enough for each and every one of you. I can't see who's here, so I don't really know, but I know that you're there, and that means a lot. So we will be back again on next Monday for the Mary D show. God bless each and every one of you, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye-bye, everybody.